10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Rising Coaches Member Spotlight, presented by Dr. Dish. Today we're joined by Pepperdine assistant coach Brian Rosario. Brian, what's up?
How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, good to see you.
You know, early out here, but it's all good. I'm still in daddy mode, getting the kids ready.
Yeah, appreciate you getting up early for us. So I guess your kids probably get you up early. So
yeah, I've been up. It's just getting them going and food and clothes and everything else. So
how many kids do you have, Brian?
I have two boys. I'm a boy dad. So one, Luciano, our oldest, is just over 3, and then our youngest, Florencio, is just turned 1.
Oh, you got your hands full. I've got one that's almost 3, 2.5, almost 3. So him alone is a handful.
We're there together then, right?
Yeah, no question.
Yeah.
I'm just a little later in the day, so he's already at school, so I could take a deep breath.
Yeah, you're in good hands for the next couple hours then, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Give us, some of your background, where you're from, how you got into basketball and ultimately coaching.
Yeah, I'm a West Coast kid. I was born and raised in Oxnard, California. Played basketball, played for, at the time, the winningest coach in California history. So basketball was always the thing, it was one of those sports that I just gravitated towards. I was a Laker fan, Showtime era. I'm dating myself a little bit. So I love just the nuances of the game, how fast it was and exciting. And, when I was in high school, getting into college at the University of San Diego, I met Maggie Dixon, which I'm sure many of us know, and obviously we lost too early. She approached me freshman year on a boat during orientation week, like, hey, we need practice players. Have you ever thought about being one? And I'm thinking, no, I haven't, so that was kind of my start. And Kathy Marpy, who was the head coach there, allowed me to be a practice player for a few years, introduced me to a former assistant of hers who was coaching, Melissa Barker, who was coaching in San Diego high school. So I became her assistant, and I just fell in love. So I knew this was what I wanted to do at that point, and coached all over the country. I've been very fortunate. Coached in Louisiana at McNeese State, Cumberland in Kentucky, Cornell in New York, and then was able to get back kind of in the league at the West Coast Conference, coaching at Loyola Marymount. And so since then, met a girl, followed her to Indiana, was able to coach youth and club in Indiana, and then became a head coach at Chandler Gilbert in Arizona before having the opportunity to get back into the league under Kristen Dowling, who took over last summer. So, I'm enjoying it. As we all know, it's your journey and it's your story. And I've been fortunate that I've been able to coach at a lot of just different institutions, but also just different regions of the country.
And now you're at Pepperdine, the most beautiful campus maybe in the country.
Right. You can't be mad getting to work, right? Like I live in the Valley. I live in Burbank. So driving through the canyon and then the first moment you see ocean, you're like, yeah, I'm going to have a good day. It's really hard to have bad days here.
If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, you got to Google Pepperdine right now. And I'm sure the first image that pops up will be the school right on the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
It's really beautiful. So we got a lot of connections, man. I grew up, my mom lives in Moore Park. I grew up in Westlake. We used to go to the Oxnard Strawberry Festival all the time. And then you coached at Chandler Gilbert, which is Steve. You said Steve Silsby then, right?
Yeah, Steve was great for me. Obviously he was, I think, in his second or third season when I was hired. So he gave me the lay of the land. I don't know if I could have done it without him, in the sense of just understanding the grind. The ACCAC was a grind. It's 12 strong teams. We played Division I and Division II, so there's really no night off. And he was just a huge help in trying to turn around that program.
Can you talk a little bit about your time? You met your wife. You guys moved to Indiana, and sounds like you took a step back from college basketball to focus on your family, right?
Yeah.
So how was that? Like, how was that decision? How was that year, or however long it was?
Well, so in 2012, our head coach wasn't retained at Loyola Marymount, so it was kind of the push that no one wants. I mean, we don't want that, right? And I remember I was at the Final Four, and we heard news that our associate head coach was not hired. So it was almost like a firing situation where the vision and just what we were trying to build up to didn't happen, and so I wanted to dabble outside I had other interests. So I spent some time out of the game, but when my girlfriend at the time, but it ended up working out, the whole move. But when she took us to Indiana, a father of a player that committed to us at Loyola Marymount was like, "Hey, do you want to get back into coaching?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I'm kind of dabbling and I'm doing some other stuff." And he was like, "Well, what about club?" And I'm thinking, man, like to show up at the gym and just coach and then go eat, and like you didn't have to stay at the gym for 12 hours, things like that. I'm thinking like, yeah, let's do this. And so I had the opportunity to coach Dominique McBride, who started at Purdue and then transferred to Arizona, Ali Patberg, who's obviously at Indiana having a great year. So that Jenna Allen, who graduated from Michigan State. So that was my first taste of Indiana basketball. And so for me, it was just a refreshing time and probably something I needed because I think we get into the grind and the minutia of, the routine of college coaching. So it was really refreshing to work with players who had aspirations to play at the next level. I felt like I could bring value to that. And Ron Patberg, who was the head coach, and Damon Bailey, who was also coaching the lower team, really allowed me to come in and help those players.
Hey, Brian, I'm understanding that we have some technical difficulties, but we're going to keep rolling. So we're having some Periscope issues, but we're live on YouTube. So if you're having issues, jump over to our YouTube page or Facebook Live. Brian, talk about then the head JUCO job. Like, what was that like after being an assistant role? I guess you had a chance to be a head coach at the club level and youth level, but then you get a JUCO program. What's that like, and how did you kind of manage that transition?
Yeah, well, when again, my wife had an opportunity in Indiana or Arizona, and so when we got there, I saw that position open, and I'm thinking, well, let me just give it a shot, because I know it's tough, right? Like you're moving into a state, no one really knows you, and so it's really the body of work that you're like, okay, well, here, is it good enough, type of thing, and I think, taking over a program that historically wasn't winning. I mean, they had 2 good seasons where they won the championship, but it was about close to 8-9 years that they just weren't winning games. And so for me, it was an experiment. I wanted to go in and see if I can create something that resembled what I was used to. And I hate doing levels, right? D1 and JUCO. To me, it's just college basketball, and you're trying to create a college environment where you're infusing kind of the lessons and the teachings for these young adults, and obviously coaching women. It's giving them the empowerment to become, right. And I took it as a challenge and just a great opportunity. Our first year, we didn't win a game. We were 0-29, and I think that right there allows you to really sit back and think, well, how bad do you want to create this environment, in terms of those philosophies? And over a 3-year period, we were able to turn that program around. I mean, we were nationally ranked for the first time in about a decade. We made the playoffs with a winning record close to that time as well. And I called it the experiment because I was really just trying to find out, what is the rhythm of recruiting? What is the rhythm of development? What is the rhythm of really allowing myself to be an advocate for players who are still in the recruiting process? So to be able to move them on to the next level was really a unique perspective that at the 4-year, you just don't get.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about recruiting, because you've been a great recruiter your whole career, and obviously it's, as an assistant, probably, if not your most important job, right there at the top. So talk a little bit about where you found success, some of the lessons you've learned, and kind of your approach to recruiting in general.
Yeah, I think it started early in my career. When you get into this, a mentor told me, you got to recruit, you got to develop, and you got to have a good understanding of X's and O's. And they said, just pick two of the three. Well, I was a shy guy, right? Like recruiting to me was not a thing, but the strategy piece was. And so when I was at Cumberland, we were losing recruits to Campbellsville and Georgetown. And so what we did was we went out of the state and we took the talent from Missouri, from Ohio, from California, from Louisiana, and we built it up. And what I think it taught me was sometimes you have to go out of the box a little bit to then create the philosophies for that conference. At Cornell, we decided, we kind of drew a line north and south through Ithaca, and we weren't going to recruit east of it because everyone knew the difference between the Harvards, the Princetons, the Yales, and whatnot. So we went west. We went into Chicago, into Texas, and ended up having good success where that team, those core players, ended up winning the Ivy League. And so, learning, I think, from Lynn Flanagan and Julia Wilhoit at Loyola Marymount of understanding how, you can target players early. And if you build the relationship, obviously the P5s have a different resource. But in the end, it is about, building relationships and being as relational as you can without the fluff. I mean, we're sales, right? We're selling a vision. We're selling an experience. We're selling these families a unique time during a 4-year period. But I have found that just if you can be honest with players and really be upfront with families as to what our need is, where their daughter fills it or where they're lacking, it helps with their process. Whether it was Pepperdine or not, we're helping with their overall process of finding the best fit for them. So I think strategy is big, but I also think understanding kind of the equation that wins in any particular conference, and then looking at kind of what works in that conference and setting course.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I think most of the time, at least in my experience when I was recruiting, I'm so caught up in like how we're serving our need as a program and can we get this kid? And you really don't. I love your approach of looking at it from the kid's perspective. You're win or lose, get the recruit or not, you're helping them with their overall process, which, probably helps give you the freedom to not be like stressed out and tense on those calls and like we got to get them and just be yourself, which is probably the only way to build a true relationship, right?
Well, and I think it came from, the time being a youth and club coach, honestly, because I mean, I'm hearing it from their parents as to what's important to parents, what's important to players, and each parent, right? Dad and mom have different needs and kind of worries about a decision. And so that's where it started in terms of just asking certain questions to those parents. And then and that was part of the experiment being a junior college coach is, I was very quick to say yes to a player because I believed in the system that and all the processes that we were putting together. So it was almost one of those things that like, if you find the player and they might not be ranked, but if you find the player and the family that align with the locker room, I think that's when the magic happens, because then it's a like-mindedness that is then flowing onto the court where you can do anything then with that player. You can develop them. You can keep them engaged. You don't have to motivate. You're just inspiring them to stay with their long-term vision. So I think it's a great perspective to be able to coach different levels and different needs and understanding it, because, in the end, it is about them. I mean, that, like our product is them graduating technically, right? And so what experience do we want to put them through while they are moving towards graduation? Well, that's going to be a competitive nature, but a loving environment where, we're wanting them to reach their aspirations.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And how is like the building process at Pepperdine been? I know the West Coast Conference is a tough league, very competitive.
Yeah.
How has it been so far going into year 2, right?
Yeah, year 2. And I mean, it's been great. I mean, I think we're hitting our marks as a program. Kristen Dowling understands the conference. She started her career at Pepperdine, so she understands what wins at Pepperdine, but also what can win in the league. Within our conference, the proven teams, BYU, Gonzaga, they're proven. So there's the blueprint that's already there. And then I think we got some fresh blood with, new coaches, in Santa Clara and Portland, and obviously us. So, in terms of our building out our vision, we know it's going to be kind of a 3 years kind of a plan and strategy, where our first year was really being able to bring in 7 players because we were losing 8. So we inherited an old team, an experienced team, which is good because they make you look good on the court, but it's a grind, right? But with that, we didn't want to lose sight on the 21 class. So in a matter of about 10 months, we either signed or got commitments from 10 players. And so for us, that was a huge stabilizer, just simply because people were believing in our vision. Players are developing in-house. And I think our biggest success was the returners of last year's team. They all decided to come back. So in a year that they probably should have transferred, in the sense of we weren't the coaches that brought them there, all of them wanted to come back, be part of this process. And I think, in the long run, we're going to have a nice little run.
Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously a testament to the job you and your guys' staff are doing, because in the age of transfers, that's unheard of, right? On any given year to have nobody leave, but especially with the staff turnover like that. That's
right.
Really-
and I think that was the thing. I mean, I think, between our staff, Anthony Mason and Grace Rieker-Franco, we have an alum in our Dobo and Sky Barnett, who I competed against as a coach, but I love being on the same squad now. I mean, we're all on the same page in the sense of the environment we want to create, and ultimately that trajectory line that we want players to stay on.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, talk about the quarantine period. You got pretty active in terms of producing some content, which was really good. Tell us about that.
Well, that just says I'm old, right? I'm at the point of my career where I do want to give back. I mean, I've been I'm only speaking for myself. I've been so fortunate in this game. Everything just kind of worked out, not as planned, but just it worked out in terms of kind of moving up the ladder, but then having a reach. And so, I wanted to challenge myself in terms of philosophies and just content that I'm absorbing. But at the same time, I wanted to kind of tell the story of my career and help young coaches. And I think we just have more people interested in the coaching profession. And we're not really growing schools, right? So there's a high demand to low spots. And so if I can help with just strategies and just mindset, that's what I was trying to do this off season. And I thought it was one of the off seasons that is really unprecedented in our profession. As you know, when is it when male or coaches on the men's side can interact with coaches on the women's side? It doesn't really happen outside of maybe your staffs and places you've been, but I interacted with more coaches on the men's side than I ever have. And I found that there's a common thread between all of us. It's trying to inspire and affect change for a student athlete, but at the same time, we want to kind of grow as people and grow as coaches.
Well, give us a plug. Was it just on Zoom, or it's on iTunes, right? You can find it for the series of shows and
oh yeah, that's it's kind of all over. It's YouTube, putting it on YouTube, but also we wanted to create live content as well, especially with the social unrest that we had this off season, as well as we wanted to highlight the coaches who are really making an effort to continue the conversation, but also to hold a dialogue. And I think that's the biggest thing that we have found coming out of this pandemic is we as coaches, we need to create these platforms and conversations where not only our players, but our coaches, our colleagues can have a dialogue of what their life has been, but also how we can move this needle forward.
Awesome. So check it out on YouTube. What do we need to type in to find it?
From the bench.
From the bench. There it is.
Group of coaches.
Love it. All right, Brian, last thing before I let you go. I, as well, grew up a lifelong Laker fan. Give me your favorite Laker role player. No
Role
superstar,
player.
role player.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I kind of have two, but they're kind of alike. So first, growing up, it was always Michael Cooper, right? Like the Koopa Loop, and just him being able to like the narrow set shot that he had. Like, how's the dude make it? Type of thing. But then it turned into Robert Horry, during the early 2000s, just simply because I think it was really that same ask, which is, come in, knock down big shots, but also create on the defensive end. And I think it's kind of a philosophical thing for me, and doing it with a smile like Magic did.
Yeah, Big Shot Bob is the correct answer.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Well, Brian, I enjoyed talking to you, man. Good luck. I know you guys are chomping at the bit, getting ready, like hoping to play your first game. You've had a few postponed and canceled. So we wish you the best of luck and look forward to following along.
Thank you much. And obviously, thank you for everything that you guys are doing. I think it's a great platform and really a good conversation that is really connecting the coaches on the men's side and the coaches on the women's side. So I appreciate what you guys are doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you being a part of it. And we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.